In today's video, we will be going over our Cosmos DB components found in our SSIS Integration Toolkit. In the Integration Services project, we can first establish a connection to Cosmos DB by going to the Connection Manager window, New Connection, and finding our Cosmos DB Connection Manager. The Connection Manager will be opened to the first page authentication. In here, we will be setting the service endpoint to our environment. This will be a unique URI, likely with this format, or if working with localhost, this may be similar to our example today. The second field you would enter the auth key. This is a secret token to authenticate and authorize access to your Cosmos DB account. You may work with Cosmos DB emulator to get the auth key if working with an on-premise environment. This would be the primary key section, or through Azure portal utilizing the primary, secondary keys. The second page, Proxy, lets you set proxy server settings as needed. By default, no proxy is selected. If you have a system-configured proxy, you may switch to auto-detect. Otherwise, you may enter proxy details manually. The proxy server and port may be entered, and additionally, you may enable proxy authentication required, as this will allow you to set the username and password. Under the Advanced page, our component provides additional properties you may set with a brief explanation of each at the bottom when selected. The auth key and service endpoint can be set here, but also skipped if set under the authentication page. Connection mode can be gateway or direct, to specify the mode to use when connecting to the Azure Cosmos DB service. Max connection limit is the maximum number of concurrent connections allowed for the target service. Request timeout. When connecting to Azure Cosmos DB, the number of seconds our component wait after sending request. User agent suffix. If a suffix is required, it can be added to the default user agent for the service. Media request timeout. If working with operations that involve media, such as attachment content, you may specify the time in seconds. The proxy category can be set here, or you may set details in the proxy page shown previously. Current location. Based on the current region client is running within, will automatically populate the preferred locations for geo-replicated database accounts. Enable endpoint discovery. Allows the client to automatically detect and route requests to the closest or optimal Cosmos DB region. Enable read requests fallback. Lets read operations automatically fall back to another available region if the preferred read region becomes unavailable. Preferred locations. Specifies the regions as preferred locations. If you select the ellipsis, you may enter a region per line. Use multiple write locations. Enables writes to be accepted in multiple regions instead of a single primary region, improving write availability and reducing latency for global applications. Max retry attempts on throttled requests. Specifies the number of times to retry when the request fails due to Cosmos DB service rate limiting has been applied. Max retry wait time in seconds. You may set the maximum number of seconds the component will wait during retries for an operation. This would be helpful in combination with the retry attempts on throttled requests, which may prevent the integration failing due to rate limiting. Default value for undefined. You may provide a default value for an undefined value. Treat undefined as null is used to specify if undefined properties should be treated as null within the document. Once the connection is configured, we may test the connection using the test connection found at the bottom. This will let us know if we can connect to the environment based on your current configuration. We can save the changes by clicking OK, which will close the connection manager. In our data flow, the Cosmos DB source component is used when we want to read and retrieve data from Cosmos DB. The source component can be found within the SSIS toolbox, and we can drag and drop or double-click to add it to the data flow. The component's general configurations can be set on the initial page. The Connection Manager dropdown allows the selection of an existing Cosmos DB connection or the creation of a new one. The Database dropdown provides a list of available databases in the environment, and the refresh icon on the right can be used to update the list if any changes had occurred. The container can then be chosen from its dropdown. Once selected, items from the environment can be imported. This opens the Cosmos DB item importer window, which sets the design based on retrieved documents. We can select how many items to scan to build the design, or set the value to 0 to scan all items. The query window allows filtering on fields to ensure they are included in the document design. The Advanced tab provides additional options that we will explore later in the guide. Selecting Import executes the query and populates the document designer. The partition key dropdown would be required when reading items from a partitioned collection, and the two available options are empty string or null. In the source type field, two options are available: items, which is the default, and item change feed. When item change feed is selected, the advanced settings page is not available. For both source types, if output as raw text is enabled, the data will be returned in a single raw text column per row, and the document designer page will be unavailable. Switching back requires requerying with the item selector. Alternatively, we can generate a design directly from the document designer page. Item change feed is used to retrieve captured changes based on a timestamp or token. The input variable type offers start time or continuation token. For continuation token, the input variable holds the token provided, and the output variable stores the output token from the change feed operation. When using the item's source type, data retrieval from items is supported. The query window becomes available, allowing us to enter a query to retrieve or filter data from the service. A query can also be provided via a variable, and insert variables can be used to select it. A hyperlink is available to open the advanced settings page. Here, we can configure additional advanced options. The first option allows choosing the consistency level when connecting to the service. Strong guarantees the highest consistency. All reads return the most recent committed write, but with potentially higher latency. Bounded staleness ensures reads lag behind writes by only a defined interval or number of versions. Session is ideal for most scenarios, as it guarantees consistency within a specific session, ensuring clients see their own writes. Eventual offers the lowest latency, but may return stale data until updates propagate. Consistent prefix ensures operations are read in order, without the strictness of strong consistency. The Enable Low Precision Order By option enables low-precision sorting within Cosmos DB. Enable Scan and Query allows scans on queries where indexing has been explicitly opted out for certain paths. Max Buffered Item Count defines the maximum number of items that can be buffered on the client side during parallel query execution. Max Degree of Parallelism sets how many operations may run in parallel during query execution. Max Item Count sets how many items are returned per enumeration. A session token can be supplied for session-level consistency. The Document Designer page allows us to import or export design structures and adjust nodes and their settings. Since we previously imported our design using the item importer, the layout is pre-populated, but other import methods are also supported. A new node can be added using the Add Node option, placed in the hierarchy at the cursor's location. Selected nodes can be removed using Remove Nodes. Node name, node type, and output data type can all be adjusted as well. We can change a node's type and select to an array, object, value, or raw. For raw, this would provide the node value as a single line of text as it was sent by the service before our component parsed the node. You may change the output settings for a value node by going to the Output Settings. This will allow you to adjust the data type if required. For an existing node, the position within the hierarchy can be changed using the 4 move options. The Filter Columns section includes an additional column named Show All Columns, which can be set to true if the node is repeated. Otherwise, it defaults to false. For object and array node types, the output type may be adjusted. By default, this would be none. Property name as value can be set if you need the property's name as a column value. Key value pivot can be used when a structure contains a key value pair format, such as a separate node for name and value. Lastly, the output option would create an additional output path from the source and link to the parent output based on the design. If an object requires a separate output path, it would be helpful to set to output type. In our case, manufacturer and its children would then flow through a separate output, which we will highlight later. We can switch over to the Additional Settings tab, which provides some additional settings we can apply. We can specify the encoding we want to work with using the dropdown. If there is a null, we can set how we would like to handle this in the null mode property, either as null value or empty string. The isRepeated text qualifier you may set to one of the available characters or none. This is helpful when the isRepeated column is set to true for one or more nodes. The isRepeated text delimiter also has a dropdown where a specific character may be chosen. This is also helpful when the isRepeated column has been set to true for one or more nodes. The last option under this section can be enabled if node names are case insensitive, and by default, this would be disabled in which node name casing would be considered. Back in the document designer, the last two options we want to cover are import and export. Designer settings can be exported to a .designer.settings file, preserving structure and configuration in the additional settings. The component allows to change the design with a designer settings file, from a local JSON file or JSON schema, or reset the design based on the item importer we previously used. Over in the third page columns, this would display all available columns from the document designer. We can choose which output to view and select or deselect any columns we would like to ignore. The two filtering options, Hide Unselected and Hide Selected, help narrow the column list. All columns can be selected or cleared quickly, and the search box makes it easier to locate specific columns. To search for a column name quickly, you may enter it into the field. This will filter based on what is provided. There were a few ways to reach the advanced page: within the item importer, the hyperlink in the general page, and directly by clicking the advanced page. These would be essentially the same settings. Once we are happy with our configuration, we can press OK to save and close. Finally, the source component exposes output paths that depend on the configuration. Dragging dummy destinations onto the canvas allows us to showcase and map the available outputs in the input-output selection. If you want to write to your Cosmos DB instance, you would be able to work with our Cosmos DB destination component. We have included an example data source, so we can now drag and drop our component and connect the inputs. The first, Page General, would let us set the connection manager, the resource to target, and the action to perform. The same connection manager may be selected if you have an existing one. Otherwise, New may be clicked to create a new connection manager. From the drop-down, we can select the database we want to work with. You may refresh the database or the container with the refresh icon on the right side. When a database is chosen, the container drop-down will be populated with containers based on that database. A prompt will occur if we want to import items based on our selection. This is helpful for generating the structure in the Document Designer page. This opens the Cosmos DB Item Importer window, which sets the design based on retrieved documents. We can select how many items to scan to build the design, or set the value to 0 to scan all items. The Query window allows filtering on fields to ensure they are included in the document design. The Advanced tab provides additional options that we will explore later in the guide. Selecting OK executes the query. We can map the existing inputs. In the columns, we can see the two inputs, and can quickly map the fields if the names match between the input columns and Cosmos DB fields. Back in the General page, you can click the Advanced Settings link to go directly to the Advanced Settings page. The next option in the General page, Action, lets us select which action to perform. We can create new records with the Create option. Upsert to first attempt an update on an exiting record if a match can be found. Otherwise, create the record instead. Replace can be used to replace an existing item with new data from upstream. And delete can be used to delete existing records. The last option, Insert as raw text, will write the entire record in the raw format as a single column. The Document Designer page would not be available if we enable Input as raw text, as it's not required. At the bottom of the page, there are options available for all pages of the component. The Map Unmapped fields, as we saw before, can be used to map the fields that match based on an exact match. If you would like to clear the current mappings, the Clear All Mappings can be selected. The FX icon can be used to dynamically set the available properties using an expression. The last option, Generate Documentation, can be used to save and preview the current metadata of your configured component. In the Document Designer page, we can see the design that was imported. In the bottom right, we can see some additional ways to import our design. With the first option, Designer Settings, you can import a settings file previously exported by our component. This will populate the views and configure the additional settings. You may reset the design based on your upstream inputs. Item is the same option when we saw the item importer previously, and the design will be generated based on the structure of the items that were queried. The last two options, you may choose a local JSON file or JSON schema file on your local machine. At the top of the page, you would be able to manipulate the design by adding nodes under the same hierarchy that is currently selected. Or, a node and its children may also be deleted with the Remove Node option. The node's position can be moved with the direction buttons. Rename nodes will allow you to specify how the node name should be represented. For Use Qualified Names, the column names will be set to the full qualified node name based on the node location in the document. On the other hand, if Use Short Names is selected, the node name will be set to the given node name. The Filter Column section includes a Show All Columns option, which can be set to true if the node is repeated. Otherwise, it defaults to false. A node can also be quickly filtered within the document and can be helpful when working with a large design. In the design, the node type can be changed. The available options are Array, Object, Value, and Raw. The raw node type can be used to write JSON data exactly as it is in the document, rather than just the value. The node name and input column name are both editable. The node name will be the name of the node in the document, while the input column name is the name to be used for the node when writing to the document. Is repeated can be used to specify if the node is repeated within the document, and is the field made available when we set the Show All Columns. The Format String option allows you to specify the output format for a string when a conversion from a date-time or numeric to a string type is performed. This is the second field made available when Show All Columns is enabled. Depending on the node type, different source types can be made available for the current node. Object and Array will have either input or none as an option. Value and Raw can either be a column, static value, or a variable. With the node write settings, you can view and change the data type of a value or raw node by double-clicking. Or the relationship editor can be opened for a child array to adjust or establish a relationship. In the next tab, the design can be seen in a diagram view. The input can be edited to add, remove, or make data type changes to any node. A new input can also be created or deleted here. The Preview tab lets you see a sample of the document filled with test values. In the Additional Settings page, you can set how null values are handled: don't show, empty string, or as a null value. Empty array object can be specified to not show, as an empty array, or a null value. An empty object value can be handled as don't show, empty object, or null value. Link IDs are scrambled when enabled is helpful when there are multiple inputs available when writing. You would be specifying if the IDs are scrambled between the inputs, and you expect them to come in a random order. Internally, the component will perform an in-memory match and join. With the repeated text qualifier, you may specify which qualifier to use when the isRepeated property is set to true. Available options are double quotes, single quotes, tick, or none. The isRepeated text delimiter is similar in that you may specify the text delimiter used in a document when the isRepeated property is set to true for one or more nodes. This can be set to new line, carriage return, semicolon, colon, comma, tab, or a vertical bar. In the next page, columns at the top, we can select the input we want to work with. The available columns would be populated. For filtering, you may hide fields that have been mapped, hide fields that we unmapped, or filter based on a name. An input column can be set to ignore to exclude it from the mapping. The field may be manually mapped to the Cosmos DB field, or, as we saw before, if the names match, those would be mapped automatically. The data type column would indicate the data type that was set in the document designer. As we go to the next page advanced, these are some additional settings that can be provided. The first option allows choosing the consistency level when connecting to the service. Strong guarantees the highest consistency. All reads return the most recent committed write, but with potentially higher latency. Bounded staleness ensures reads lag behind writes by only a defined interval or number of versions. Session is ideal for most scenarios and guarantees consistency within a specific session. Eventual offers the lowest latency, but may return stale data until updates propagate. Consistent prefix ensures operations are read in order without the strictness of strong consistency. If match eTag to, set the eTag associated to the request in Azure Cosmos DB. If none, match eTag to, set the eTag associated with the request in Cosmos DB. Indexing directive controls whether a resource in Cosmos DB is to be indexed. Default can be selected to use any pre-configured defaults, include to index the resource, exclude prevents an item being indexed, which can reduce cost for write-heavy workloads. Max degree of parallelism sets how many operations may run in parallel during query execution. Post-trigger include option can be set to invoke after the operation. Pre-trigger include option can be set to invoke before the operation. The session token can be supplied for session-level consistency if required. The last page. Error handling is used to help you specify how errors should be handled when they occur, as well as additional output columns that can be enabled. By default, this will be set to fail the execution when an error occurs. Ignore errors can be set to skip the error and continue the operation. Redirect rows to error output can be selected to redirect just the rows that have received an error and have them flow in a new error output path for inspection and further processing or logging. There are some additional columns available in the default output that have been returned in the response. We can show these additional columns after we save our component's configuration. The first path we connect is the default path, where successfully written rows flow through. If we double-click on the path and go to the metadata, the new columns are made available. Same for the error output path. If we connect this, we would be able to see the rows that have failed here. There are 3 additional columns here. Error code, error column, and error message available for troubleshooting or logging. There is an additional error output that orphaned children, and this would include child rows that failed to find a parent record. We hope this video has been helpful in your understanding in working with our Cosmos DB connection manager, source, and destination components. Give this a try in your integrations. KingswaySoft. Data integration made easy.